Well, welcome to our quarterly meeting. I'm Jenny Bowersfeld with Lacey's Communication Department, and I'm really happy that you all joined us on a beautiful spring night. So y'all are the real heroes for being here instead of enjoying the nice evening that we're getting. Thank you for being here. We've got a great presentation tonight by Natalie Holmes. She's with the Management Trust. And Teresa Hammer is here as well. I don't know if you guys are sharing the presentation or just if Teresa's here for moral support and to help answer questions, but they both have been in the industry for many, many years. I'll let them introduce themselves and share a little bit about their background as well. But let's see. Oh, the microphone, if you're new to the meetings, we do record these live. So there are some online viewers who are watching, and then you can also share the link for the meeting recording later. But in order for the people listening online to hear what we're saying, we have to be speaking into a microphone. So if you have questions, that's great. Just raise your hand, and I'll run around and just hand you the microphone. So if your question is important enough to speak into a microphone, then I'll let you decide that. But we do ask that you use the microphone. But I think that's all for announcements for me. I was just going to mention our neighborhood grant program has closed and the review process is complete. So within the next 2 to 3 days, hopefully, if any of you applied for grants, you should be seeing an email from me with the results of that. So keep an eye out on your email and let me know if you have questions when you receive that. So I'm going to pass it over to Natalie and Teresa at this point.
Hello, everybody. I am Natalie Holmes. I am with the Management Trust. I am the Executive Community Association Manager for the Management Trust in Lacey. We just opened a Lacey branch back in October. I have been in the industry about 8 years. It's definitely challenging. I am also a board member on my own in my own HOA, so I understand the struggles. It's a very thankless job, but somebody has to do it. So I do appreciate everybody showing up and trying to do the best for the community, what we can do. So I will, and then let me introduce Teresa Hammer. She's also with the Management Trust. She's a project manager and my assistant.
And you know me or you don't know me. No, most people do know me because I've been in the industry for, I think, 33, 35 years, somewhere in there. So, yes, I got some knowledge on me. So, even though I'm still really cute. So, thank you.
Please put the mic closer to your mouth.
Yes, ma'am.
Just move it a little bit. Okay, then, so I will go ahead and get started. At any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask away. Otherwise, we'll be browsing through and see where we can get. Okay. No. Please have some patience with me. I don't do presentations, so this is like my first actual, other than board meetings. Board meetings are different because I know my boards, so I will do my best. As everybody is aware, we have HOA and changes that are coming within the next year or two, being finalized in 2028. A lot of the changes started being implemented January 1st of this year. So I am just trying to give a brief overview of what the changes are that started this year. So we're going to start with assessments. There's a lot of confusion about assessments. A lot of homeowners feel dues or mistake dues with assessments or interchange those. So assessment is a primary funding mechanism for all associations and all association obligations. Under RCW 6490, associations are required to levy assessments sufficient to meet common expenses. Failure to collect assessments impacts reserve funding, shifts the burden to paying owners and can delay maintenance, exposing the HOA to liability. Next slide. Oh, okay. What is an assessment? An assessment includes all charges lawfully levied by the association. Under RCW 6490.480 and RCW 6490.485, regular and special assessments are enforceable obligations. Late fees, interest, fines, and collection costs may be imposed if authorized by your governing documents. Next. So, when an account is delinquent, what do? An account becomes delinquent immediately after the due date passes. And there is a lot of confusion that homeowners feel is an assessment. So your declaration or general assessments are always due on the first of the month. Your governing documents will give you a grace period, or the board of directors will give a grace period. So a lot of homeowners come back to us and be like, oh, I have 10 days to pay my assessments. Technically, you don't, because your assessments are always due on the first. That is when you have to make those payments, and anything after that, you technically are already delinquent. But again, it is up to your governing documents and the board to provide a grace period. There's a question?
Yeah, so our association doesn't do it monthly. It's done annually. And so the assessments are due on the scheduled date, which we say, which is the date the assessment's done. So what you're saying is, by law, they're allowed 10 days to pay that assessment, or they just, because it's annually, they need to pay it before the next time we do an assessment?
It depends on your declaration, what is listed in declaration.
Okay.
So a payment is always due. So if your assessment is annually, and your assessment would be due on the 1st of January. And then depending on what your declaration says, some communities have a 10-day grace period, 15-day grace period. I have communities that have 30 days. So it depends on what your declaration says. It's not necessarily 10 days.
And so I'm jumping ahead. So you're going to get to when collection process begins? I'll let that go.
Does the assessment collection process and any collections for past due assessments, does that need to be spelled out in the bylaws or governing documents?
Yes.
It does, okay.
And
Okay,
if it's
thank
not,
you.
you have to have a very good delinquency policy in place.
Okay, thank you.
So can I follow up with a very good delinquency policy? So can we amend our bylaws if there are other collection processes than when the HOA was originated and the collection? Because right now, our only collection process is a lien. And so if you have somebody 35 years in the rears and they never sell their house, so we put a lien on there, and then the liens only last a couple of years, we're constantly at $300 for filing liens. Is there other collection processes, or do we need to amend our bylaws to create other collection processes?
Okay, that was a lot of questions in
I
one
know.
little statement. So let's go
I
back
know.
over and break it down into little sections. First thing you need to remember is, what are your governing documents?
Yeah.
Articles of incorporation are the reason why your association began, because the developer was responsible for those. Bylaws are the board of directors' responsibility to the association that tells you what you have to do, when your annual meeting is, what's this, when's this.
Right.
Your CC&Rs are the governing documents that every homeowner is responsible for.
Right.
So you can have rules for delinquency in the bylaws and also in your CCNR. So keep in mind, there's a couple documents that will that. You can also have the additional policies, like a delinquency policy that also goes into play, where the board of directors have created a policy, say this is what happens when you're delinquent, and then this is the process that we go through that's already been sent to homeowners, that's already in play, and that's why I said a good delinquency policy, because sometimes it's not written, not given to homeowners, and then the enforcement begins. So you want to make sure it's written in policy and you have it, and that everybody receives the same thing. So that's part of one of the things. That's the first part. So then the second part, sorry.
No, and if you're unsure about if your policy is correct, you would always confer with your association attorney just to make sure that you have a.
Associations have an attorney on staff. So
Collection attorney.
Collections attorney, yeah, you should.
It doesn't cost you anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, we're a 36 homeowner association that pays $200 and some odd of fees. We're going to keep an attorney on retainer?
No. So
So-
for HOAs, you don't have to have an attorney on a retainer. So you sign, you engage with an attorney and have that attorney be representing your community, and they only charge when they do actual work for the community. It's not a retainer. So you don't have to pay a monthly fee to pay.
So I
for the-
really want to go back to the collection policy. Does that become law if you have a collection policy part of your bylaws? Does that become law so you can enforce on a policy?
Yes, it becomes part of your governing documents, yes. Just like your ACC application or your exterior changes, your fence regulations, your trash can regulations, all of those are policies that are enacted and put into place. And the reason why you need a good collection attorney is because the person who thinks the lien is only good for 5 or 6 years, the lien actually never goes away. If you have to sell the property and they have to release all those liens, guess what? They're going to have all those fees to release. But new laws say that a lien can be on there for up to 10 years prior. Now in 2026, or I think it went into effect in 2025, it says that the liens are only good for 7 years. So that's why homeowners associations think they have to refile liens every 5 to 7 years because they go bad. They don't go bad, but you're protecting the association. That's why you file a lien every 5 to 7 years before that expires. But it still stays on the home. It's still on the property. Sorry.
We have amended our governing documents so that we have a better collection policy. But we understand that Bukoia ties our hands somewhat.
Yes. We're
So-
going to go over those. We're going to go over that
Yeah.
tonight. Yeah.
Good.
Yes. And ma'am, in the pink sweater, we're going to be back to you later on. Okay. Yes,
Lori.
you. That's you. That's you.
She was speaking to you.
Oh, it looks pink to me. No, I said pink
Oh,
sweater.
she said pink.
Okay. So stay with us, okay?
All right, where were we?
On the delinquency.
Delinquent.
So you were talking about the due date, the past due date, and then the collection process begins. Technically, if your assessments are due January 1st, every homeowner is delinquent January 2nd if they haven't paid. So that's the point of this. Okay?
And that's another reason why it's so important to have a sound collection policy, so you can start enforcing the delinquency notices and follow up with the homeowners that are delinquent. All right, notice of delinquency. So this is the update that went into effect this year. So you have your, like Teresa said, on day number 2, you would be, your assessments would be delinquent. So depending on your grace period, associations must provide notice before initiating a formal collection action. And that aligns with the consumer protection standards and due process requirements. So the notice needs to include the amount owed, account details, next steps, contact information for help and resources. And this is important now. It must be mailed or emailed. If you have the contact information on file, you have to email them as well as mail the notices via hard copy.
Once again, repeating, you cannot simply email it. You must hard copy mail, and if they have provided you with an email, you must also email them. So 2 steps, same document.
And then another section is provided in a preferred language. So if you have an owner in your community that whose native language is not English, you need to, and you are aware of that, you need to try, or your management company or you as the board need to message that delinquency notice in that native language.
iPhone has a new translator. It's fantastic.
And I've communicated with homeowners before in Mandarin regarding collections who was past due, who I ChatGPT, and yes, it does work. And they were actually able to understand what I'm saying. And when I received a response, also in Mandarin, I had to Google Translate it. That's a question.
When you say hard copy mail, does that have to be by certified mail to ensure that the homeowner had truly received it, because that would require a signature?
You can, it does not have to be.
And there's a limitation on costs, so you have to really take that into consideration.
Right.
That's the next slide.
So if you have, for management companies, of course, when we send out mailers via hard copy, we can track that. So we have proof that it was mailed. If you don't have a company, then your best bet would be probably to send it certified to ensure that notice was received.
There's also a secondary one that's like $2 or $3 that's in cost that isn't certified mail, but it does force the person that the post office says, we delivered this. So there's like a little fee. I can't remember what it's called, but there's one that's a little bit less than certified mail, because I think certified mail is like 10 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good.
Couldn't we, we're a very small association, so could we hand deliver it and have them sign a receipt? It has to be mailed. Okay. And if USPS goes away like they've been threatening?
Well, that'll be a new law that we'll be looking at.
We would have to figure things out then.
I have two questions. You said a notice of delinquency must be sent 30 days after. If an HOA has a collections policy that has a little bit more time frame for an owner to pay, that must, what happens if you don't do exactly 30 days after? If an HOA is giving a
Delay
little
the
bit.
whole process. You delay the whole,
Yeah, you delay the
whole-
process, but nothing else happens other than a delay, correct? And then in the law, it has very specific language for that notice of delinquency. So I'm assuming that this notice here is supposed to have that specific language that's in the law itself.
Yes, that's the summary of what the law says. You
That's
can
a
look up.
summary, but
Yeah.
it's very detailed in the law. So, okay, I just want to make sure that we're talking the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
And also the step contact information for help and resources. We've already, we every now and then get recourse from homeowners that feel threatened. When we include the different avenues that they can take to ask for help. And it's I mean, for a lot of us companies, it's a template, a generic template that we mail out to every homeowner. So it's not specifically geared to that person individually.
But they think it is.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they feel offended.
But it's a good resource on there. That's the reason why it's now required to be included, is it does give you resources of, if you need help, here are some resources to find help. So it's actually a really good piece of information for somebody who actually does want to get help to pay their assessments.
So after your 30 days, depending on, like you said, Ms. Cindy, if you have a longer period, it just delays your collection process. But so after 30 days, then when a notice was sent out, you have to wait at least 15 days from the date that the notice was sent out. So during this time, to start further actions. So once that notice is sent out, 15 days after that, there's only limited actions that the association can take. For example, the mailing cost is very specific. The small admin fee can't be more than $10. So if you have a management company that charges, for example, $25 admin fee or $35 admin fee, in that 15-day waiting period, they are not allowed to charge that. We cannot charge more than $10, or it's up to $10. And then a limited late fee. That is, if you have a collection policy and you have like a $25 late fee or a $35 late fee, whatever is greater, the new statute says it's either less than $50. So if you have a $25 late fee, you're still good to go, or 5% of the amount owed. So if some communities might have starting a late fee starting at $50 or $75, can't charge that. It can't be less. Can only be either 5% of the amount owed or up to $50.
So, Natalie, I have a question.
No, you may not.
Only for the time frame. So, at this point, are we 45 days into it, or only still 15 days into it?
45 days.
45 days. Okay, I'm just doing the math, just making sure.
All right. So after the 15-day passes or is passed, your notice requirement is satisfied. And that's when, at that point, the HOA can proceed with collection efforts. And then the additional charges regarding the collection efforts must comply with your governing documents. Okay.
I did, yeah. I gotcha.
So this is another new option. After the 15 days, the homeowners have the opportunity to request meet and confer with the HOA. However, that needs to be requested by an attorney or a housing counselor. So prior to that, if your owner reaches out to the board to make agreements, of course, that's preferred. However, if it gets to that step, to that legal step for a meet and confer, that has to go, again, through a housing counselor, or that request needs to come from that owner's attorney.
So I have a question.
You need to knock it off.
We're going to make it fun, because this is not great information, but it's sticky. Yeah. So I am deadbeat house owner, okay? I live in the first lot. I'll do whatever I want. I'm not going to pay my assessments. So you sent me my late fee. You sent me my fee. I got 30 days past. I didn't bother to pay it. Now I got 15 days past, and I got this little piece of paper saying, hey, somebody can help me. So, but I saw that, but I decided to just call the board of directors and say, hey, can I get on a payment plan? Can they do a payment plan prior to the 45 days, or is this still negotiable after 45 days?
That's still negotiable.
Okay, so that's why. So the reason why I'm asking, because I think it's important to understand that 45-day window of where we're moving towards. Because your policy may say they have 60 days, so that's fine. So it's 60 days plus 15. So keep in mind that whatever your policy says, now you got 15 days on top of it. So that's the reason why I keep reiterating that, because I think that's important to say. So once again, housing counselor, if they followed that paperwork that you saying, hey, if you need help, contact these people, that's where the housing counselor is going to come in. If they have an attorney, then their attorney is going to be contacting the board of directors. So this is contacting in writing, or can they call somebody on the board? How does it have to come in?
It has to be in writing.
Okay.
Everything from that point on has to be in writing.
And why is that important? Because it shows the date they mailed it, and now you have the 30-day tracking. Mm-hmm. That's why it's important. So do not accept a payment plan, or somebody saying, hey, I talked to my attorney, they said this, it's got to be in writing or it's not effective. Yep. You cannot take it if it's not in writing, so make sure you keep that's important.
What if the homeowner pays the original amount due, but none of the late fees?
It's a different process altogether, but thank goodness that they paid something. I said, thank goodness they paid something, but you would probably still go after them for the others, but it wouldn't be the same amount because it's only effective on assessments. So.
And then again, that would be also up to the board of directors. So if the pure assessment amount is owed, there might be leeway where the board of directors will waive the late fees or any additional fees that were assessed.
I assume you're going to cover this further down, but what if they blow all this off?
That's where we're going.
Oh, okay.
Stay with
That's
us.
what I thought. I
Stay
just wanted to
with us.
make
The
sure.
ride
I
is
just
still
wanted to make sure I
occurring.
got that on the record.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Cindy has a question.
Who are these housing counselors?
It's
I mean,
through
is
the
that
state of
something we're
Washington.
supposed to have, or?
No, it's through the state of Washington. So it's somebody going to an attorney asking for help, and then the attorney saying, hey, go to this place. So it's always going to be a reference. Once again, it's in that template document that goes with your late fee that says, if you need help, here's places to go to get help.
Right.
Okay. It's a standard document that's got to be on all delinquencies now, especially if you're going to go through the delinquency process. So they are housing authority. It's a housing authority. It's a group of people who do the work, and they will offer help and provide. Sometimes it's mediation, so it kind of depends on the process. When that person comes to them, they have to set and evaluate what's happening with that person, and can we move forward and help them. And where can we find this template? We have it.
Well, we have one. Every management company should have their own.
It's actually written in the state law.
It's in the state law, yeah. So it's under
Actual
the
template is in the state law, yes.
But see us afterwards. We'll see what we can do.
We can provide information.
My question is that you had mentioned that late fees are not included, that assessment's separate than late fees, but it was my understanding that the law says that if you're assessing late fees, it now becomes a part of the overall assessment for that property.
Yeah,
So
that's
it is
correct.
pretty much included.
Yeah.
You have a right to include that with an unpaid assessment.
Absolutely.
Or without an unpaid assessment. It becomes basically an assessment.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure. I was a little
Your
confused
late
about.
It was just saying if they paid the
If they just-
$300 and
yeah.
didn't pay the late fees, and then now they only have late fees, can you go through this process? And the answer is no. It has to be
Oh,
on
okay.
assessment, so,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
And
I
most of the
gotcha.
time, it's first in, first out, too, so keep that in mind even with all collections. But yes, if they have $300, they got a $50 late fee, yes, it's $350.
And it's the same, so your interest is part of your assessment, so everything that goes late fee, interest is part of your.
Sure. And the admin fee, if you have one, so as long as
Right.
it's all on the list, that's why when the original, back a couple, it said, state what's due, what is the amount due, so that full amount, and you can break it down, but what's that full amount due?
But as an association, you can still, of course, go after if that owner just pays the assessment and the late fee, admin fee interest is not paid. That is then up to the board if they want to, if they are, accept that and then just waive the remaining fee, or if they want to just continue with the collections process.
Okay, so we're 45 days into this process. The delinquent property owner calls me, the president of the HOA, says, can we talk about this? And I said, of course, I'll talk with my neighbor. Does that skew this process because a housing counselor or attorney did not get involved?
No, just don't promise anything, make them put it in writing, but talk with them and say, hey, did you read the paperwork we sent you? You can get some help through the housing authority. I would send them back in that direction, and then say, or, whatever's happening with that. But either way, even if you have a one-on-one conversation, the problem will be this, Mr. President, is that they will say, oh, Mr. President told me I didn't have to pay the assessments. It's your word against their word. Now, you know you didn't say it. They know you didn't say it. But everybody else is going to believe the person who is lying, because that's always the easiest thing to hate the HOA, right? So that's why you have to get it in writing. Once again, absolutely have a conversation, be courteous with your neighbor, especially if they want to say, hey, this and this and this, and so they want you to be empathetic or sympathetic to whatever issue is happening with them. But the bottom line is, thank you for this conversation. Please put it in writing or seek out help through these options.
Another option for the homeowner would be, again, if they reach out to you, Mr. President, for a one-on-one conversation. No, it's a board decision to move forward, and any decision that is made by a board needs to be in an open meeting now.
We're going to go into that.
So, yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm just going to piggyback on to what you're saying, Mr. President, over there.
Introduce himself that way. We didn't know.
Right,
So.
I know. I guess I just don't fully understand. So if we do have a member who comes, up to you and just says, one-on-one, I want to be able to talk this through, do we need to have it to go through the housing council, or is there something that we can do as a board and say, okay, we can work out a payment plan or something like that? Does it have to go through the housing? If we can come up with a resolution between homeowner and, and the board, I guess.
Well, that is your ultimate goal. You really don't want to move forward to go to a housing authority. So yes, you can decide that as a board to avoid that step. Obviously, it's going to save you cost as well. But again, that would have to be in a meeting, and anything would have to be documented, meeting minutes, and all the good jazz.
So what she's saying as a simplicity is that the homeowner, so you have your meetings, 45 days have gone, and the homeowner comes and say, hey, I really want to get on a payment plan. I was thinking about this and this and this and this, and that sounds great. So put that in writing to the board of directors so we can take a look at it. You guys don't meet for another 2 or 3 months. That means that they haven't put on their payment plan at that point, so, because the board hasn't approved it. So you have to either have a quick meeting and da-da-da-da, so you make sure. Right. Well, you still have to invite everybody to listen to the conversation.
Yep.
So no, that doesn't change anything. Yeah, we're going to get into that. Yeah, every meeting has to be public meeting now. That's the new law. So once again, if you give them time, it just delays the process down the road. And in the meantime, if they haven't paid anything, if they're acting on good faith, they would have started paying even if they haven't been approved for their payment plan. But that helps the board to make a decision too, if they're going to be good for it, right?
So
Yeah.
just to, even if you consider it as administrative meeting, it's a meeting. If that's a meeting where a decision is made, it has to be open to all homeowners.
But that violates the privacy of the homeowner.
Not anymore?
Everyone in the
Not anymore?
To discuss the issue, yes, for the decision, you would have to go into executive session. And that is where then the rest of the owners would either put in a waiting room if it's via Zoom or needed to log off. But any decision that is made has to be in an open meeting.
So to recap summary, she said, if he comes and says, we want to set up a payment plan, and the homeowner presents to the board of directors, maybe verbally or whatever, they present what they want to do. The board then goes into executive session where then they can talk it out in detail without homeowners hearing that conversation. But when they come out, they have to say, this is the decision for lot 46.
Right, I understand that,
Okay.
but that still violates their privacy. That one meeting is the only topic that you're talking about. Everyone knows that is what the conversation is.
Right. We didn't make the rule. That's the new rule. Yes, it's very inconvenient. Understood. Absolutely. We're not loving it either, but yes, that is the new rule. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, Cindy.
The law that allows for email decisions on votes, are you saying that law is no longer valid?
You cannot meet in an email as a board of directors and make decisions. You can
No more
make
unanimous consent by email?
Nope.
And when is that effective?
January
January
1st, 2026.
Oh.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so no more, even if it's put into the board agenda for the next meeting?
Nope.
Okay,
Because
well, that's
a lot
news.
of times you would say.
It's been a trudgery, yes.
A lot of times you would have items ratified at the next meeting, or items that were discussed in between board meetings. That is no longer valid. Can't do that anymore.
So
Yeah, I
here's a
knew
good
we couldn't
example.
discuss it.
Yeah, we had a
outside
tree
of the meeting.
situation. They sent the bid in December to get the tree removed. 2 board members reviewed it, said they thought it was okay. Other 3 board members decided to take Christmas off, didn't respond until January 1st. Couldn't do anything
Well,
on
you
it until
couldn't
the
do it
next.
either before, under the previous law because
January
you didn't have
31st.
unanimous consent.
Well, actually, December
Oh, so I
31st was
see.
the cutoff.
Because of the cut, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, okay.
Sorry. Okay. I love this. Let's go. I'm having a great time. Are we all having a good time? This is great. Okay, so discuss payment options. And then try to resolve the balance. So that was answering your question is, even if they're 45 days, they're now 2 months past, you know, you're going down this legal process, can they still come to you and say, I need to set up a payment plan, will you do it? The board should make accommodations for that. The answer is still yes. Okay.
Okay, we got what notice includes, 15-day, meet and confer. Oh, no, one more question.
When you say payment plan, they're still going to pay the full amount, right?
Plus late fees, plus interest, plus anything.
Plus late fees, okay, that's what I thought.
So make sure you include it. It's easy if the assessments are once a year.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, let's take this, divide it by 6 months, you got it paid in 6 months. But when it's monthly, make sure you take the monthly added into that 6 months of already paying, so. Or quarterly, or whatever it is, you know.
All right, so, and why this step matters is it delays the collections temporarily, prevents immediate legal action, and gives owners a chance to resolve the issue. And that's what we discussed with a couple questions now. You do try to not have the meeting confer, but if an owner comes forward and wants to talk to the Mr. President to resolve that beforehand, then that's definitely acceptable.
Sorry, let's go back one step.
Which one?
Back one step here. Oh, am I going the wrong direction? Hang on, sorry, hold on, don't cheat, don't cheat, don't cheat, don't read it. Okay, so here it says HOA must meet within 30 days, and that's the reason why they want it documented, so you know when that 30-day date starts. Because the date they mail it, that's on the outside of that envelope, is the date that starts that 30 days. Because it's so important that you have to get back to them within 30 days, because what happens if you don't? If they ask through the housing or the attorney, and you don't respond within 30 days, they win. Okay? So
That's
that's why
fine.
30 days is very important. Make sure you're responding within 30 days, and you're responding in writing back to them saying, yes, your payment plan was agreed to, or no, it wasn't agreed to. Or you set up a hearing, because maybe you want to meet in person, because that does make it easier to meet with the person. You set up a hearing, and they come with all of their crazy stuff, this and that, and all the different things that kind of people can, bring to the table. And they don't set up a payment plan, and they don't keep it. Now you have it in writing of what it was. 30 days passed, hasn't done it. So once again, always the best. If you can get money, that's always a good thing. Let's always take the money up front, right? But if we can't, make sure that you are documenting on your side that you made every intention. Because when we were at the CA day earlier this year, that the attorney was talking about this, and this, and that the important part is that you set the hearing within 30 days so that you can meet with that person one-on-one, and then you're responding back. So that if you don't, they get to do whatever they want. They can say, I went to the hearing, you didn't respond to the hearing, you didn't give me my due date, or, for me to be able to talk with you. So now the attorney and the state of Washington looks like that you defaulted, so now they don't have to pay.
Right.
So that's why it's important. All right, sorry about that.
So after that, next step, if there is no decision made, the next step would be mediation. So in mediation, you do really want to try to avoid to get to that point, because now, mediation is then the next step before it goes to litigation. So you definitely try to want to figure things out before it gets to that point. So if it comes to mediation, it also helps to reduce your legal costs. And depending on what is written in your governance documents, it might be required in your governance documents as well. So you want to take a look at your governance documents if there's a requirement for mediation.
Jenny, do you guys still work with the mediator here in Thurston County? Do you guys still work with the mediator?
Yeah, the dispute resolution, Thurston County dispute resolution, the city has a partnership with them now. So they used to just work with tenants and landlords, and they've expanded to working with homeowners associations. Obviously, you have to have willing participants from both sides to go and utilize their service, but it can be for free. So if you reach out, if you're needing to work through an issue with members, reach out to them and explain the situation, and they'll let you know if that falls under the agreement that the city has with them, and then the city then covers the cost of that.
And the good thing about that is that if they default on that, you can file that with the court systems, and they'll have something against their property. So.
And if for some reason you can't use the services, CAI also provides mediation services. Of course, it has to be with a neutral party, but there is a cost to it. And that cost, if it goes to mediation, would have to be shared between the homeowner and the community. So the big picture timeline. The timeline reflects statutory sequencing. Obligation is created, the lien attaches, notice is provided, opportunity to cure, dispute resolution, and then after that it would be enforcement. All right. 13. So this is the impact on the HOA. So Bukayawa as we gearing towards it, increases compliance requirements. So it's definitely more administrative a burden to the HOA and management companies, not a fan. Increased legal oversight. This is the main reason why it's so important to have everything in writing, because the attorney will go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and that's why it's very important that everything is in writing. And delayed cash flow impacts budgeting. So going forward, since the HOA will have to burden a lot of the costs, it would be very wise in your upcoming budgets to include legal costs, because this is unfortunately the reality now, that the HOA will have to pay up front before they even can collect on assessments that are owed or other items. Okay. And why policies matter. So associations must adopt formal policies to remain compliant. This is, again, another important point to be certain you have a sound collection policy in place. So you don't have no recourse from any homeowners if there's, or attorneys if that homeowner sends or reaches out to their individual attorneys. And your policy should clearly define your collection steps, payment plans, and authority delegation. Okay, next slide. So this is what we had mentioned. So under the new Wakaiowa law, boards can
Washington Uniform Condominium and something and Association Act. So it's an act. It's Washington Uniform Condominium.
No, it's not common. Common, there you go.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
I was like, I always
Common
missed the O or
interest.
the A, sorry.
And is that where we need to go to find the laws? Are they underneath that?
Yep, you can look it up, Washington
Yeah.
State, Wakaiowa. 6490, yep. Thank you.
So under Wakaiowa, boards can no longer make decisions via email. So previously, if any decisions needed to be made, if a board used the email communication, that can no longer be done. So it has to be any decision, board decision that is made has to be in a meeting. And there are a couple 6490.445. 445. And then the other one is outside meetings freely. That should be RCW 6490.450. So, yes,
At least 7 days, or is it 5
14.
days? 14 days in advance.
if it's an emergency meeting, it's 7.
Talking about the privacy issues there, can you refer to members in an open meeting as member X, member Y, lot number 2, to protect people's privacy? Can you give them some kind of
Yes.
nomenclature?
So
You have to.
You have to. So lot numbers is a little iffy. Right, because everybody can look up a lot number. So for us, we refer to homeowners via account number, because the remaining homeowners don't know the account numbers. But a lot of associations were used to referring to homeowners with lot numbers, but you can look up lot numbers. So, I mean, it's public record. So you really, no names, no lot numbers, account numbers, if you have those.
And you can always assign an account number and just continue to refer to it, but you need to make sure it's consistent across the board.
Yeah.
Say, like, if when we come back from executive meeting, we'd say homeowner A or homeowner B, but in executive meeting, obviously.
Right.
That's not something we have to put into the
No, you can
No,
say.
you can't.
Yeah, you can say
But,
Mr.
yeah,
Smith
but-
or Miss Betty or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, but the homeowner A or homeowner B, if you want to, that is, yeah, absolutely.
So one of the reasons why it's important that you understand the board limitations on decisions not in an email is because it really, really impacts your architectural control. So people who are making exterior projects, and you're used to receiving those applications, you're like, oh yeah, this looks good, give it to Bob. Oh, it looks good. Okay, that's not a meeting. You cannot do it anymore. So it's one of the thing that makes us pull our hair out the most, because whoever made that decision in the legislation did not think about that.
Seeing that, I know that board members have I think it's you need to notify board members of a meeting, 3 days? If the president's calling a meeting,
14 days now.
14 days now.
Emergency 7,
Okay. And then what about members?
14 days.
14 days for
Emergency
members.
7.
Okay, an emergency 7. Thank you.
Because it used to be 3, you can note within 3 days you can have an emergency meeting. But nope.
There are, so let's,
That last little line there.
yeah, so that's important. Again, all decisions that are made by a board need to happen in an open meeting. So again, if we recently had, 2 weeks ago, a CI annual conference, and there were several sessions with attorneys that suggested kind of workaround. Because so the meeting requirements, again, when it comes to architectural committee reviews, especially if you have a community that is very heavy in architectural reviews. If you get a request in, and then a week later you get another request in, you would technically have to have a whole lot of meetings just to approve those requests, because it has to be in an open meeting. So it was in one of the sessions, and again, you always want to, if you have an association attorney, want to check back with your attorney. But so what I tend to do, what I started doing with my communities, overscheduling. If you have monthly meetings, that's okay, because you have generally 30 days to get a response to the owner for architectural requests, for them to for the board to provide a response. If you have quarterly or semi-annual meetings, that's going to be a little more difficult. So one option that I started is scheduling monthly board meetings. Just
ARC meetings.
just to meet your notice requirement according to the new state statute. If you get any requests in, then you can have that standing meeting, and it can be a really short meeting because you're just addressing those requests that were sent to you. If you don't get any requests, then a meeting can just be canceled. But for every meeting, you do have to make sure that you require or submit the notice requirement. Yes, sir.
Okay, so what are the acceptable ways? We have an annual meeting, we make decisions, it was all noticed and all that. What are the acceptable ways for me to communicate those decisions to the membership?
For the meetings?
Yes.
So there are several options. Again, you need to communicate. Like I said, one option would be overscheduling. So you have a standing meeting, monthly meeting, and you can, and it has to be mailed to the community.
It has to be mailed, snail mail?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, are there exceptions for really small HOAs?
Yes. So if there's, if you have a homeowner, if there's a roof that leaks, for example, and they need to get it repaired. So there are exceptions, because this would be an emergency where you can make that decision to have them move forward with the repair, you would have to schedule a meeting as soon, within the 14 days, and have that action ratified at that meeting, though.
Okay. And what I'm wondering about is we're 15 lots, so that's 1.5. So I know like the reserve study requirements, we are obligated to spend about $150 on a reserve study, which is never going to happen. So we still have to figure out what to do about reserves. But are there other with small HOAs, other thresholds we don't meet?
No, there's nothing. Actually, for the association reserves, it's 5 or less lots. So you don't have to have a reserve study if you have 5 lots or less. But now with the new regulations going into place, actually, we need to look at that and see if that actually is correct.
I mean,
For condominiums, the minimum it's 12. If you have 12 or under, you're not subject to this. But if you're 12 or over, you're
I think it's
under
down to
this law.
5. That's what I'm saying. I think it's down to 5.
But even if there is, the reserve study requirement is present, but for the amount that you had mentioned, there is no penalty if you don't have a reserve study. But it is required, though.
But all the rest of
I'd
this
like
is still required.
to go back to the architectural requests. So if someone submits an architectural request on our portal with our management company, then we have a meeting and talk about it. And then can we reply back to them on the portal? You said you can't do it by email. How can we reply to them?
Oh, you can reply. However, this decision, if it's approved or denied, has to be in a meeting. So a meeting has to be scheduled.
Okay, so we have the meeting, we talk about it, we vote, and they're there, and that's all we have to do. We don't have to reply on the portal, although that's where they submitted it.
We have the same process with our company. I prefer when board members still give input through the portal. However, that decision, if it's approved, still needs to be ratified. It just, the more you communicate, even through the portal, that just reduces the time when you have your meeting. Because the board already reviewed it and kind of made the decision, but again, it has to be ratified at an open meeting.
Hang on just a second.
I think our question is, how do we respond back to the homeowner who's waiting for our decision?
Through the portal, yes.
Well, technically, your management company should report, relay that message.
No, our management company doesn't handle anything except accounting.
So can you log onto the portal and send that homeowner a message saying that their application was approved?
Yeah, that was
Then that
what
would
our question
document.
was. Is
Yeah,
that
that's what I thought.
sufficient?
That's documentation. If you've had your meeting, wait a minute, if they've had their meeting, they've approved it, now they're just telling the homeowner they're approved. They didn't
Well,
attend.
if you had the meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be an open meeting, though.
Right, so they've done it all right.
It was an open
but-
meeting.
Yeah, she's
That's
asking a different
all,
section.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
on the
yeah,
up and
yes,
up.
yes.
It was just,
Yeah,
Sorry, we were stuck on something else, sorry.
Yes, no, you can reply back. That is sufficient.
Meeting and only 8 people show up, but there's 35 people in there. You don't have to notify the rest of the homeowners of that decision if they didn't show up at that open meeting?
Correct.
There's no responsibility to notify them of what the decision was.
No, because, I mean, you have to give the owners the opportunity to observe, and that is it. So if only 8 people show up, then that is on them. If the rest of the owners don't show up, the board gave the opportunity to attend that meeting. So it's on them to attend the meeting or not.
One
Oh,
clarifying.
yeah, but you have, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not that you have to have quorum or anything. It's just the board has to give the opportunity to the owners to observe and attend the meeting. Whether they attend it, it's on them.
One clarifying question, please. So this gentleman asked how a decision is notified or delivered to a resident, and you said mail, and he asked snail mail, you said yes. But then over here, you said through the portal, but not mail. So what is the mandatory notification, please?
No, I think the question was about the meeting notice. Maybe I misunderstood. The meeting decision, my apologies, I misunderstood that. No, the meeting decision, if you made that decision in a meeting, you have your proof with your meeting minutes, and then you can just respond to the owner via email. Because the decision was made in a meeting, and that's reflected in your meeting minutes. So, yes. Yes, to relay the decision to the member, yes. Sorry, I misunderstood. It's late. Good? Yep. All right.
So this is how the HOA still function?
Where is it? How the HOA? All right. So how how the HOAs still function? Boards can approve policies in advance, delegate authority to specific board members, take action and ratify decisions later in meetings. That is specifically to emergency situations. So it was the delegate authority to specific board members. This was something that was brought up as a kind of workaround, especially when it comes to minute decisions like ARC. If a board, and that's an option, designate one board member or two board members to make that decision to approve those requests. That, according to the attorney, 2 weeks ago, said that would be acceptable. However, this needs to be documented in the meeting minutes where the rest of the board or the board as a whole made that decision, and it needs to be reflected which board members were given that authority in the meeting minutes as well. So that would be a workaround rather than overscheduling meetings or scheduling meetings every 30 days for certain requests. Why this matters for collections? Because collections are time sensitive. So again, for certain requests, the boards can delegate specific board members to give the authority, especially if it's time sensitive. But again, everything would have to be documented in meeting minutes. Policies must allow quick action. Any authority must be pre-approved and is critical. Otherwise, delays can cause financial loss.
Question back here.
Yes.
I just had a quick question, because I know that you were talking about allocating to board members, but how about just, because I think we are allocating some of these decisions to our property management company to like certain bills or certain collection things that they're going to take care of that for us. So we don't have to sit there and have meetings every time we need it. Is that, I mean, that's what we're doing, but I'm not sure what your position is on that.
You can. I didn't put it in there because we try not to be in that position as managers or as management company. But as long as it is documented in the meeting minutes that the board delegated that authority to the manager or the management company, that is okay as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
You have to give members, thank you. You have to give members 14 days before you have a meeting. And did I hear you say that has to be snail mail? Every time you have a meeting? That goes through a lot of paper. It's killing a lot of trees.
That is, again, why I For me personally, for my communities,
Yeah.
I just sent out beginning of the year, or depending on when I get new communities, a standing schedule for those meetings that is mailed out once, whether we have those meetings or not, because they can get canceled at any time. But that satisfies the meeting notice requirement according to the RCWs now.
Okay, but if we have like emergency meetings, we would have to send those out.
Yes.
Snail mail.
Yes. So what Natalie is saying is that,
And why
let's say you
is-
guys meet quarterly, so you know you're going to meet on January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and October 1st. You send out a notice saying these are our quarterly board meetings, these are the dates, these are the times. In the middle, you can have a second say, here's the annual meeting date, and this is the date for the annual meeting. And then in addition, the first Monday of every month is going to be the ARC review meeting. You can put that all on one piece of
Right,
paper,
I
send it
got
out
that,
one
okay.
time. And as long as no special meetings or administrative meetings or anything extra comes up, then you'd have to follow the 14-day mailed policy.
Right. And I realize you guys didn't pass these laws.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering in 2026 why we're going back to killing trees. Do you guys can you explain to me what the thought process was?
I cannot tell you what the politicians came up with. No, I
Okay.
do not know. They did not ask us.
Is this work of the legislators, or is there
Yes.
some other kind of committee?
This is, and I can tell you for any management company, I just cry. It's not okay.
It's just sad that,
Yeah.
I mean, I advocate for a group against gun violence, and we couldn't get things passed because there were 4,000 bills introduced in the session. And when this kind of stuff gets the
trivial.
attention and gets passed, and it's nonsensical, but when we can't make sure that things are safe, I'm sorry, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, go and talk to Senate Representative Johnson. He's the one who put a lot of these bills in. Senate Representative Johnson. I don't know. I don't know wherever he's out of, but he was the person when I went and spoke against the WCOA laws that he was like, anybody can come do this. So get his help with what you need to get done.
Couple more questions. So we send out a single notice, we mail it out, we have an annual meeting, we identify the dates for all of our board meetings and location of our board meetings. How much discretion do we have on setting the agenda for those board meetings 6 months from now?
I just we sent out a basic agenda because you don't know what you're going to discuss in 6 months. So as long as you have at least a basic agenda, that will satisfy the notice requirement as well. Yes.
I just wanted to comment that, we can blame our legislators. However, this law is a law that the basic part of it, they're trying to get enacted in every state so that when you move to Oregon, you're not going to be surprised, and, we'll be talking the same language. And so this is a uniform act. The U stands for uniform because they're trying to make it uniform around the country. Well, I understand.
Because I'm not moving to Oregon, so I live here. I don't live here.
Okay, what we did when we sent out our annual billing, we published all the meeting dates and locations, monthly meetings, quarterly meetings. We put out just a very sample agenda, old business, new business, but not the details.
Mm-hmm.
And that just got mailed out with the billing. So my question, we do 4 annual meetings. 4 quarterly meetings.
Okay.
3 of them are information only. Just come on, we'll tell you what's going on. 1 of them, we make decisions, we have our election, we pass our budget. So we have a meeting coming up that's just information. It's on the schedule. This is a quarterly residential, come on in. Do we have to mail out that agenda 14 days before that meeting?
If there are specific items that are going to be discussed, yes.
What?
If there are specific items that are going to be discussed you should, yes.
Well, the police chief is going to come and talk with us, and we're going to talk about the arborist report and what's going on with the ponds. It's informational. We're not making decisions.
So it's more like a town hall then?
Yeah. Do we have to mail out the actual agenda 14 days before this meeting?
If you're not making any decisions at that meeting, no.
Okay.
You can push the button.
Is it working? Okay. I think with the notices, with our previous 2 meetings for HOA for this HOA information, the gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he had stated, was he younger or was he an older gentleman? No, he wasn't. It's the younger guy. Because we had 2 gentlemen thus far, and it was the first one, not the second one who was the lawyer. It was the initial one. Anyhow, he's the one who had stated that when it comes to the notice, I remember him saying that we can do like mail to notify your homeowners, but you can also post it on your mailboxes, and you can also put it on your website. That all it counts as notifying your homeowners.
Yes.
So it's not just by mail.
If you have the capability of a portal, posting it on mailboxes, yeah, you could.
Okay,
But,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure that we're clear that it's not just snail mail. That goes back to
That's your
answering
first
his
level.
question.
You have to snail mail it. You can also post it on your portal.
That's not
You can
how he
also
said it. He
Post it
didn't
on the
say it like-
mailboxes.
He said we had to notify by some kind of uniform that everyone has access to the information, which is our mailboxes.
We'll ask Terry, because
and-
that's, you have to hard copy mail.
I don't know if it was Terry. That's
Okay.
why I'm saying it was
He's older.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been
The
Terry.
younger guy, maybe it's
I don't know who the younger guy
very
is.
first gentleman.
you misunderstood.
Yes, yeah, the very initial one when he was just introducing this platform.
So you only have to hard copy mail. You don't have to do anything else. That's our understanding of the law, right?
No.
You only have to hard copy mail?
If, for what,
For the meetings, for the meeting dates. One time, you have to hard copy mail.
to meet the notice requirement, yes.
Are we talking the notice of 649515, right?
50 or 50, yeah, one of those.
Because 515 says notice may be provided in electronic transmission as follows, as long as the unit owners, board members by electronic
Opt-in.
transmission is effective only by unit owners and board members who have consented.
Yeah.
So if you
Opting
have a
in.
consented list and they've consented to receive emails and
Yeah.
notices, then you don't have to do snail mail, right?
Correct. If they consented
It
and
sounds like
opted
you
in.
have to do snail mail for all notices, but if they've consented to receiving
correct.
email communications, you don't have to mail.
No.
Okay, that's.
I mean,
That being really clear, if they say, yes, I only want to receive it via email, then you only have to send it via email.
Yeah.
But if they don't say, I only want email communication, and
You have to mail it.
because everything defaults to paper.
Yeah.
Paper is the default.
So they
Okay,
do
but
have
if
to
they've given
consent, yes, you're
consent to
right.
receive HOA information by email, you can send it by email?
yes.
Okay.
Because they've chosen.
Not everything has to be sent by snail mail, as long as you have consent to use email?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's.
Good job, good. That may have been what he was saying, Miss Ma'am.
Yeah.
That may have been the
So if an
the
owner,
caveat.
that is correct, if an owner consents to receiving electronic notices, then yes.
Good, good. Well, if we're wrong, let us know, because it'll make things a lot easier for us, too. So do you want to talk about the delays can cause financial loss?
Which one is it?
It was just the last statement, there's otherwise.
I already mentioned that.
Perfect.
So next is common collection challenges are missed payments, dispute overcharges, delays due to legal requirements, and increased administrative workload. This is, again, what I mentioned previously. It's going to be a huge administrative burden to follow up on the legal requirements, catching delinquent owners, and following up on that. It's it's a lot of extra work, a lot of administrative work. So here's a homeowner responsibilities. Pay assessments on time. Contact HOA early if struggling. Respond to notices quickly and request help before escalation. From a management standpoint, that's all we ask for is if you are struggling or if you can't, if you have any issues, just communicate. If you don't communicate, we don't know that there are any issues and we can't help, or we cannot work with the board to help that individual homeowner. So HOA responsibilities: follow legal timelines, provide proper notice, offer fair opportunities to resolve your debt, and apply rules consistently. This is one item that is brought up quite a bit, that there's selective enforcement by the board or the management company to the owners. So you want to make sure that you don't give one homeowner leeway and then enforce more on with a different homeowner. So you have to be enforcing everything consistently. So the key takeaways: collections are now more regulated. Communication is critical. Policies must be clear and updated. And early action benefits everyone. That's, again, the more you communicate with your homeowners on all the changes, the better. Review your policies that are in place. Make sure that they are sound and meet the legal requirements. So there is less pushback on everything. It's going to make, the minute you have clear policies, that's going to make everybody's life a whole lot easier. Final thought: strong community depends on timely payments, clear processes, fair and consistent enforcement. That's, again, make sure you review your policies that are in place, and a key point is really fair and consistent enforcement across the board and not singling out any homeowners when it comes especially to compliance enforcement. We get that a lot. Any more questions? Answers? I'm going to look that up with what she said.
I have just a quick question. Do HOAs have any standing in small claims court?
As someone who sat over there, yes. It depends. It's not as effective as actually, if you know the homeowner is going to be a problem, it's better just to contact a collection attorney, let them do all the legwork. Because I have said in small claims court, the mediator forces you to mediate with that person, set up a payment plan, even if you don't want to, even if the board doesn't like it, the courts can force you to do that. The person sets up a payment plan, walks out of the courthouse, and never gives me a payment. And then I got to be right back in there 30 days later filing that documentation that the mediator gave me to now go after them and hire a collection attorney. So most people don't use small claims anymore because it's not effective, because in the long term, if they don't do what they're going, the homeowner doesn't pay their part, all it did was delay.
Okay, so it doesn't give you any collection capacity?
Nope.
Okay.
Yep. And if you need a good collection attorney, VF Law is fantastic, by the way.
So which statutes, which chapters in the RCW have we been talking about? I heard 64.90, I think 64.38 may.
64.34.
34. Okay, any others?
Yeah, if you just go online and just look up Wakiowa, it'll give you the whole list of all the new regulations and what went into effect. Because there's a lot.
I will send these slides out to everybody that was here, and I can include links to all of like the main Wakaiwa. Did you want to ask your question?
When it comes to the collections, when you're sending notices, so I have a small business, so I know that if I send someone to collections, I have to have specific verbiage and communication, like very specific before I transfer it over to a collection agency. Is that the same situation here, or is there kind of like a lump sum because we have 30 days, 15 days, and that kind of thing? Is there certain verbiage that I need to communicate to the homeowners that are outstanding in their payments?
You should.
Besides saying you're outstanding and you have X amount of days to get up.
I can meet with you after and give you some. I am more than happy to submit or send you any templates.
Okay.
So the more verbiage you put in, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier.
Right, that's what I was like trying to get ahead of
Yeah.
it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got another question about unanimous consent. So 649445 says, after the transition meeting, which most of us are at that point, the board may act by unanimous consent only to undertake ministerial actions, actions subject to ratification by the unit owners, or implement actions previously taken at a meeting of the board. How do you define ministerial actions?
Well,
I would say, how do you define unanimous? Because it's
so
it's also,
ministerial actions, and we have another fellow manager here. She was at CA Day too. What are ministerial actions? That is very vague, and even attorneys can't identify what is considered ministerial actions. So
It would seem to me that architectural review is ministerial actions.
you would think so, but that's not the case.
Really?
So that is
So
not
what
the
is a
case.
ministerial action? Honestly.
Good question. Once the attorneys give us the information, I would let you know, but we don't even know.
But unanimous consent is allowed also for, to implement actions previously taken at a meeting of the board. So that's something that's covered. And of course, unanimous consent under the previous law was email communications or unanimous consent by the board via email. So there is some allowance there if we can figure out what ministerial actions is and previous actions.
So, I mean, yes.
Okay.
It is, again, what we were told by attorneys at this convention. Whoever implemented those new or approved the Senate bills and the RCWs as very vague, and even attorneys don't know how to answer our questions when we reach out to them. So it is up to everybody's interpretation what is an administerial action.
Or
Pretty
we
much.
can
I
make it
mean-
mean anything we want.
Pretty much.
be the first lawsuit to determine
But
that,
you have
right?
to be, I mean, you have to be very careful what you could then consider being administrative. It's, yeah.
So do you think it's fair that if it's HOA business, they should probably just consider it administrative?
No.
I'm just asking the question.
To be on, I mean.
You're doing HOA business?
If you meet, so if a board meets amongst each other and you do a sidewalk and you talk HOA business and you make a decision there, that is not administrative. Technically, that would have to be discussed in an open meeting. So if I get clarification on what that means from the attorneys, I am more than happy to let you know, because we don't know it ourselves. Oh, trust me, I was like, I ChatGPT.
If only
that
they would
as well.
accept it. Webster's is not acceptable.
But the only response that we received really from attorneys was like, it's very vague and it's up to interpretation, but then you have that one homeowner that challenges anything. So for you as board members to be on the safe side, just have it in an open meeting and record it in your meeting minutes.
Just for the room, so I'm on the RCW 649445, talks about the meetings. a little bit down here, it talks about different ways a notice may be any means described in RCW 6490-515. Talks about tangible and then the other methods, such as electronic and things like that. So to answer the question, 6490-515 discusses specifically notification methods.
Who's the HOA police? Because if we have all these requirements, who's checking on that? Who's making sure we do all this stuff?
I would like to,
All these ridiculous technical requirements for volunteers that are untrained. So I'm confused.
You have a bunch of neighborhoods that did that enact their HOAs. Nothing happens with them. They've got the requirement to have an HOA, but nothing happens. Zero zilch.
That is just very true. We continue to put all these requirements on yet.
It is, I 100% agree. It's very, very frustrating. Again, I've been doing this for almost 8 years, and with all the changes that are happening, I'm questioning. Right. And I question my life choices right about now. I said it all the time. I was like, I do love what I do, but with all those changes, it's really, really hard. And I do question life choices. But for me, it's important to educate my boards, and that's what I try to do because, again, I'm also a board member, and I have to follow the same rules as y'all, and it sucks. I'm sorry.
Are there any final questions? We've got about 5 minutes left.
I need to get to the thank you. And
Yes, let's thank Natalie and Teresa for coming tonight.
And a sidebar, thank you all for showing up, because I know that it's a lot of work to be on the board of directors, and we appreciate everyone who shows up, listens, takes and absorbs the information, and does the very best for their HOA. So we do appreciate you also.
And for anybody that has any questions moving forward, if you have your own management company, we do have a Lacey office. If you just want to stop by and ask questions, by all means. I'm in the office Monday through Friday, so I will be.
Cards over on the table here too, if you want to.
So by all means, you can grab a card and reach out for any questions, and I'm more than happy to.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.